I thought I'd start off with just a few remarks about our athletic program. My name is Dave Odell, and I'm the athletic director here at Westmont College. I've been the athletic director for about 2 years. I'm also an alum of 1989 and played some basketball during that time, and usually I'm sitting where you are, so this is a new thing for me. Some of the remarks I wanted to make were just to tell you a little bit about what's going on in athletics and what we're talking about in athletics. About a month ago, we brought in all of our captains into this room, and we had a retreat. And at that retreat, we talked about leadership and made that a focus for the year. And one of we used the 8 principles of leadership by a guy named John Spence. And the last principle of leadership is community. And we spent a lot of time talking about community and what that means. Spence says that community is a mutual commitment and it inspires the highest performance. And so what we talked about is, as an athletic department, am I not loud enough? All right. Can you guys help me back there on the mic? All right. Is that any better? All right. So what we talked about as an athletic department was how we didn't want to just be a collection of teams, of random sports teams, but that we wanted to be a unified community, a group of teams coming together to support each other. And so at the end of the night, the group of captains, there were 25 of them. And by the way, you'd be really proud of that group if you got to see what I saw. They are the leaders of the next generation, and I'm feeling pretty good about things after spending the time with them. And they chose a verse, and they actually adapted it a little bit. It's Proverbs 27:17, and it was to remind us of our commitment to each other. And it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one warrior sharpens another." And to me, this proverb really speaks about the interaction that we have with others and how that strengthens us and makes us sharper. And in fact, Nike was kind enough to give every one of our athletes a new t-shirt, and we have that printed on the back. Iron sharpens iron, so one warrior sharpens another. And I actually have this one for President Beebe because he has not gotten his yet. And it's also interesting to me how that theme for the year, this idea of community, really fits into our event tonight. You know, each one of the 3 warriors that are being inducted into the Hall of Fame are a strong representation of that truth in Scripture. And to this day, their leadership and their athletic accomplishments are a benchmark for what our current athletes are trying to achieve. And a lot of these are records they're trying to break, but they are what you all 3 have established, and your leadership and what you've accomplished as athletes here are what the athletes that are now donning the Warrior uniform are trying to pursue. And so I just want to recognize you for the role you still play in our institution and with our athletes. Before we get started with the program, I'd like to state the names of the current Hall of Fame members that are here in attendance and ask them to stand. And I think I have them all written here. Ron Mulder, would you stand up? Dwight Anderson. Why don't you stay standing, Ron? We can have everybody stand. Dwight Anderson, are you here? All right, Dwight. Russ Carr. Russ, thank you. John Crew. Is John Crew here? All right, John. Kathy Lesage, our own Kathy Lesage. Inducted last time around, Mark Miller, Casey Roberts, Dennis Savage, who's down here in front, and George Turgeon. George, I saw you earlier. There you are. I hope I haven't missed anybody. Did I miss anybody? All right, so last round of applause. Thank you all for being here. Chris Elwood and Riva DaSilva to come forward. As they're going to do that, I'm going to introduce Chris Elwood, Chris is a fine athlete in his own right. Chris played tennis here from 1988 to 1992. He played #1 singles and doubles. He led his team in 1990 to the National Championship Tournament, where they placed 23rd. Chris knows our inductee quite well because he was his coach. And Chris has served 2 tours of duty with us as the head men's tennis coach from 93 to 97 and 2001 to 2009. Under Chris's leadership, the Warriors captured 4 GSAC titles and sent 5 teams to the National Championship Tournament. In 1996, at the National Championship Tournament, he coached the Warriors to a 9th place finish, and a couple of guys named DaSilva and Fickle. Is Ashley here? Oh, okay, parents are here. Went to the finals of the doubles competition that year. And so congratulations, Chris, and thanks for presenting tonight.
Good evening. Friends, it is indeed an honor and a blessing to be here tonight. Congratulations to all the outstanding inductees. Most of you don't know this, but Tyne Hardiman here was my basketball and volleyball coach in a high school in the Philippines called Faith Academy. And his influence in my life is the main reason I ended up at Westmont. So it's great to see you, Tyne. And congratulations as well to Miriam and Riva for leaving a legacy here at our home, Westmont. Westmont holds a dear place in my heart, and it is with great joy that I get to help you reminisce tonight the making of NAIA history and celebrate together a very special person and tremendous tennis player in Riva DaSilva. Riva is a classic serve and volleyer, an aggressive net player, a breed that doesn't really exist anymore in the professional game and is certainly a rarity in college tennis. An artist on the court. Along the lines of Stefan Edberg, he rushes the net with the raw and sheer power of a snow leopard, pouncing on his prey, and then, with the deft touch of soft paws, precisely toying with his opponent, volleying the ball just out of reach. A combination of elegance and explosive power, brilliant artistry with athleticism, mental tenacity with the grit of a workhorse. All that have seen Riva play remember his gift with great appreciation. I've always felt that the mark of a true champion never lies in individual accomplishment alone, but in his ability to raise the level of professionalism and performance in those around him. Riva is the epitome of a true champion. Now, I will let the story of Riva DaSilva, just like his consistent leadership by example, speak for itself. 1996, with the GSAC championship in hand, in the sweltering heat of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Riva led a team of mostly underclassmen to a top 10 finish at the national tournament. He made All-American status by getting to the round of 16, losing to a crafty left-handed British player, unseeded and teaming with a young tennis phenom, Ashley Fickle, age 16 at the time. They won 6 straight matches and finished second place in the nation. Between the lines, Riva clearly inspired the level around him and made each team member that much better. His work ethic, character, positive self-talk, sportsmanship, mentorship, and undying belief and confidence in his ability and his teammates brought Westmont its strongest tournament finish ever. That is, until the following year. Every great athlete overcomes obstacles. For Riva, this took place in the form of a wrist injury at the fall preseason Cal State LA tournament. With surgery and 4 months of no tennis, no one, including himself, thought that this next year would have much promise. But overcoming adversity with good old-fashioned work ethic, he came back with a passionate and desperate claim to salvage his senior year. Riva put pride aside and plays number 2 on the team his senior year. He not only graciously accepts my decision as a coach, but encourages the talented Ashley to play number 1. Team above self. Another mark of a true champion. 1997, indeed an historic year. The team goes undefeated in conference. Riva wins the GSAC tournament by defeating teammate and doubles partner Ashley Fickle in a close final. Together they win the doubles. Back to Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, windy, humid, stifling heat, where a mere walk outside meant a change of clothes. Where we, as a team, relied on air-conditioned steakhouses for entertainment. Here is the scene, the largest tournament in the world, 256 players in the draw. Just to give you perspective, there is no tournament, including Grand Slam events, that has that many players in the draw. That means 8 matches have to be won in a row to win the tournament. And this, all in 6 days. The French Open, Wimbledon, US Open, Australian Open give the players 2 weeks to play a tournament half the size. In addition, Riva is also playing the largest doubles tournament in the world at the same time. And back then we played 2 out of 3 sets. So Riva, seeded 16th, wins his first 3 matches routinely. And then, as if cruel fate looks him in the eye, he faces an old nemesis, that same British lefty, fellow artist, fellow servant volleyer that he lost to the year before. This was a turning point in the tournament for him, as his form begins to peak and his belief in himself rises to a new level. Riva edges him out and makes the quarterfinals. Renewed confidence and sweet revenge. Quarters, the most difficult test. Fernando Ibarola, number 1 seed, a beast of a baseliner, a beast of an athlete on an ominous, muggy, hot day. Meanwhile, Ashley, seated 32nd, on the other side of the draw, plows through, pulling upset after upset, and makes the quarterfinals as well. They are playing at the same time, and me as the coach is running back and forth, court to court, getting my own workout, trying to propel them on. Riva is getting beat in a clash of styles. Serve and volleyer versus baseliner. Down a set, frustrated, dark clouds inside him, and now forming above him. Rain. It starts to pour. Delay and a venue change, which for players like Riva is pretty much divine intervention. We now play indoors. Riva licks his chops. Indoor tennis favors serve and volleyers, and Riva loves playing indoors. Riva on one side of the indoor complex pulls the upset of the tournament with a relentless attack of surgical precision. He defeats the number 1 seed. Synchronizing, Ashley on the other side of the complex upsets the number 7 seed. The talk of the tournament so far, these two friends, 10 years age difference, doubles partners, hotel roommates, two Westmont dark horses, as if inspired to the same destiny, gradually racing to a head-on collision. Semifinals. Riva, undaunted, plays the fourth seed, a fellow South African, Francois Bosman, and wins a tough three-setter. Meanwhile, Ashley, with his powerful serve and ground strokes, defeats a burly German baseliner, twice his age. They both make it to the finals. Exhausted, the look on their faces was priceless when I told them now they faced a quarterfinals doubles match. Their bodies stiff and sore, depleted, had nothing left but jello legs. Imagine playing a doubles match in that state with someone you will be fighting against for a national championship the very next day. Moreover, sharing a hotel room. Next day, national championship. Easiest match I ever coached. Feet up in the air, in the stands with the guys, cheering them both on. Can't help but smile. The story ends in a tough two-setter, Riva prevailing, and NAIA history made. Never before had two players from the same school met in the final, and never again will it happen. The Westmont team finishes third place in the nation, an historic high, and the GSAC has now turned tennis heads. Riva, thank you for making tennis history. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for being a true gentleman on and off the court. Thank you for being a warrior. Thank you for being a true champion. Congratulations on your induction into the Westmont Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Chris. I think I need to get Chris to write my speech, right? After that, print it out nicely and the whole works, you know. But anyway, wow, it's good to be. Can you hear me? Yeah. There we go. It's good to be back at Westmont. It's been wow, many years. Good to see the familiar faces, the campus, and of course back in Santa Barbara. Fantastic. So thanks everybody for coming. Obviously, got to thank my table, or a couple of tables, and people that have come out. Very nice of you guys to show up and obviously lend your support. But I've got to thank obviously Chris, because if it wasn't for him and Ron Mulder, I probably wouldn't be here. So I guess it means a lot. I remember the day, I remember this was 1995, traveling in Europe and thinking, okay, what do I do? You know, go back to university, move to Europe, back to Namibia, originally from Namibia, was part of South Africa many years ago. But through a mutual friend, you know, said, hey, come on out, you know, check out Westmont College in Santa Barbara. And at that time I had a girlfriend, so it was very inviting. And you know, of course, I think I maybe been once or twice to Santa Barbara before that, but obviously growing up, you know, Santa Barbara, the TV show, that was the big thing, you know. It's like, wow. So, you know, coming here, it's like, it wasn't quite like the TV show, probably even better. But never forget coming out, I think gave Chris a call one day on the phone, and yeah, coming out to Westmont and hack a few balls with the, you know, tennis balls with the guys, and it was so funny. Come and chat to Chris, the guys are practicing. I think this was in the fall sometime in 1995, and never forget, 6'8" guy, Ashley Fickle. So he's like, hey, go play him a set. So it was interesting, you know. I didn't realize somebody could go to university so young. For those that don't know, Ashley, I think he went to university at, what was it, 13, 14, something like that. But anyway, so obviously with a 10-year gap, I was like kind of intrigued. So I had a great day, good chat with Chris, and long story short, you know, January 96, I started here at Westmont. Didn't really know what to expect, and obviously coming to a small university, which was fantastic for me, because before that I was in Monroe, Louisiana, which is, you know, great experience for me, again, coming from Southern Africa. So anyway, long story short, just had a fantastic year, 96. You know, it was tough for me just to get back into school, because I took a 6-year break, so just to get back into the routine. And but it was fantastic. I could already see, you know, obviously Westmont, the class act people, educators, you know, people that are surrounded, going to Westmont, which was great, which is, I guess, everyone needs, and especially me coming back, trying to figure out, you know, what did I want to do, and never mind what did I want to study. So I know Ron was a great inspiration to that, with the whole kinesiology department, and Kathy and the whole group. And fantastic season, obviously great people, and just kept going. And you know, I spent 2 years here as a player, and enjoying the lifestyle, and obviously the education, and you know, improving my faith and stuff. And I never forget was, you know, when they told me, oh, you have to go to chapel, I was like, chapel? You know, why? For what? But, you know, now you look back, I guess, a little bit more mature, you know, and you realize, wow, what an impact, you know. You realize, especially when you're out there in the world, you know, obviously not so easy, and no one's holding your hand, and you remember who's looking after you. So I think those are the little reminders on a weekly basis that, you know, your faith's important. So it was inspiring. Like I say, I guess I see it more and more now every single day. So, but I guess to answer his question, we played a little tennis today, and he threw it out there at me. I was like, okay, great, you know. But I got to tell you a story. Kind of leads up to the, you know, rooming with Ashley Fickle, 97. I think we roomed 96, 97. I think every single time. You know, I can't remember, but I'm assuming. We actually became very good friends, and of course the Fickles, got to know them very well, showing me around Santa Barbara, you know, sort of taking me under their wing, which was fantastic. She always made some good food, I'll never forget that. and great restaurants, so always fantastic. But, you know, I came here a week ago and stayed with Ashley. We keep in touch, we're good friends, and it was so funny because on Monday night we spent a night in La Quinta, and he was like, wow. You know, roommates. Doesn't this remind you back of the old days? I was like, yeah. But now the difference was we're not going to compete against each other. We're going to go on the back court, and no one really cares how we play, and, you know, talk a bit of nonsense and, of course, have some fun. So that was kind of interesting. I think the last time we roomed before this last Monday was probably that very, you know, 97, the match in Oklahoma. So kind of pretty wild. I mean, very interesting. So... But, you know, as a player, yeah, I had an unbelievable time. You know, like I said, I was playing in Europe, traveling around, which was fantastic. But then, you know, I wasn't quite sure what to do. And, of course, coming to Westmont sort of gives you new direction. At least for me it did. So that was unbelievable. And the support and, you know, the women's team, men's team, kind of like that setup. And obviously the same today. And then, you know, they allowed me to graduate. Thank you very much. Very nice. And then, of course, you know, Chris took a little bit of a hiatus, and I said, "Wow, it'll be a fantastic opportunity. Let me do some coaching." And, you know, the guys allowed me here to become the coach, and I thought, "Wow, you know, okay, that's great, but now we need some tennis players, you know." And, you know, after coming off 2 really big years, particularly 1997, massive year where I think the only thing we lost was the coin toss. It was unbelievable. I mean, we just, every single time we went out there, we were winning. So, you know, it becomes a habit. So a couple of the guys from the 97 season were on my team, so that was pretty special. And then a couple of new recruits. And it's crazy today, I guess with a little bit of help of Facebook, I think we're all familiar. It's funny how the 96, 97, and even 98, 99, I was here 2 years coaching, still actually really good friends with the guys that are on the team. And, you know, I was 2 years at a university, I think 6, 7 years prior to that. And, you know, don't even keep in touch with the guys anymore. So it's special. I mean, that's magic. You don't see that everywhere. So, but as the coach, it was obviously a different challenge. I could let my racket do the talking, and obviously try and get that to the new guys. As Chris had plenty experience of that. A little bit more of a challenge, but I think it was a great learning experience for me just to sit on the sidelines and try and at least not only edge these guys on, but try and pass some experience, and I can kind of see what they're going through, because I've obviously been through that. But again, great learning experience, and taking that today in business and just daily life. And I guess so many lessons you can learn from tennis, being here and just walking through through life, so to speak. So I had a fantastic time, like I said, as a player. I think maybe even more learning as a coach, because obviously uncharted territory. So that was interesting. I don't think we did fantastic, but I think that was not the point. The most important, part was you're out there challenging yourself and giving 100%, and 100% is, I guess, all you can ask for people, and at least have a direction. So that was fantastic. I know we did a couple of trips, which was great. One particular trip that stood out in my mind, we went to Hawaii, and I'll never forget. It was funny because a couple of, I was like, wow, let's take the team, 7, 8 guys, and all of a sudden, no, coach, come on, can we do one more? And before you know it, we're 11 guys going to Hawaii, and I was like, oh, what did I sign up for here, But again, great experience. I mean, it was just a joy to have these guys, and being able to pass the experience and show them through the ropes. And like I say, I think what's even greater today is that I'm still friends with these guys and keep in touch, and that touches my heart, So since then, I'm still involved in tennis today. I actually moved to New York, New York City, got involved a little bit in tennis over there, and spent 5 years, 5 very interesting years. And actually a good friend of mine, Rafaelia, we bumped into each other. We actually met here at Westmont in Santa Barbara, and we actually started working together on the stock market. So that was a different experience, but that was great. We're both still standing, and of course great friends, and spent 5 fantastic years in New York, and I'm in Miami, Florida right now, still involved in tennis. So and like I say, keep in touch with the guys, so can't complain. But more importantly, I want to thank everybody, obviously, for coming. Thank Chris again for the fantastic opportunity. Ron Mulder, fantastic. John, for putting this all together, much appreciated, and I guess thinking of me and allowing me to the Hall of Fame. So thank you very much, guys, everybody. Appreciate it. Enjoy the night, all right? Thanks.
I'd like to ask Miriam, Nagel, Ryan to come forward, and Russell Smelly, and Miriam's father, Roland, is going to help with the induction here. I'm going to introduce Russell real quick. I started to make a list of all of Russell's accomplishments in 30 years at Westmont, and I decided I'd pick the one that I think is most impressive to me, is that he is a 1999 inductee into the NAI Hall of Fame for cross country. And so, Russell, take it away.
We'll see if this all works. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce Miriam tonight as a Hall of Fame inductee because of the notoriety she received as an athlete while she was here, but most of all because of who she is. She came from Buena High School in Ventura, and fairly unheralded, very small encouragement from me, and fairly modest expectations, to be honest. The first meet when we went away, I left her here to run at the Westmont Invitational while I took the real runners to San Diego. When she was a senior, she let me know she did not appreciate that, and she finished second in that race. So there's a lot that can be said about Miriam and her time at Westmont, and her modesty is genuine, and she always focused attention on her teammates, even as she was lauded for her running accomplishments. She was an outstanding leader in her ability to encourage others, to be sensitive to those with emotional needs, and to make everyone on the team feel important. And with a walk-on team, not highly recruited, but having people that had never run before to All-Americans, Miriam made everybody feel like their role in the team was important and that they should be there. She was willing to be coached, but she was, when needed, voice her opinion or objection on matters of principle. One of those matters of principle came when the senior that year decided that the women were going to wear bun huggers. I don't know if you all know what those are, but they're fairly sheer and explicitly bun huggers. Miriam, being a preacher's kid and just being Miriam, was not excited about that, so she walked into my office, and when Miriam has a strong opinion, she talks faster. She said, well, you can make me wear those if you want to, but I don't want to wear them, and I will only do it if you make it, but I don't want to wear them. Miriam, you can wear anything you want to. She had already been a two-time All-American, so at Nationals, as the president of the association, and there's a strict rule that all the uniforms have to match. I said, folks, well, you'll have to disqualify my All-American now. She will be wearing different shorts than the rest of my team. And she was an All-American in those shorts. She was totally trustworthy, though capable of a prank or two, being a preacher's kid and all that, especially on the men who seldom suspected her. Being a preacher's kid, she was smart, not rebellious, just willing to cause a little fun mischief from time to time. So you can ask her about that. No, let me tell you a story. So we're at the team retreat, and mysteriously, all the men's underwear disappear. Every woman on the team was questioned, threatened. One was going to be swirled in the toilet, except one person was never suspected and never questioned, Miriam. Well, we go on our Eastern trip to Virginia every once in a while. We're in Maryland at my brother-in-law's house. The men are staying at my brother-in-law's, and I drive up with the women's team from where we're staying. And I look up, and all the men are sitting on the porch and leaning against the post and just looking kind of smug and guy-like. But there's all these panties hanging across the front of the house. So as I pull up and stop, I hear Miriam go, "Those are mine!" The doors burst open, and she's running and jumping and pulling them off the front of the house, and it was finally realized, the guys realized who had taken their underwear the previous fall. But humble or not, when the gun sounded, Miriam knew where to go, which is get to the finish line as fast as possible. She had great heart and great competitive acumen. Her sophomore year, we were sitting in Subway, and Ashley, or Chris, I like that idea of steakhouses. We were sitting in Subway in San Luis Obispo, and I said, "Miriam, do you realize that you could win the conference championship next weekend?" "No. I've never led a race before. I might get lost." I said, "I'll be standing right there, Miriam." And the next week down at Balboa Park in San Diego, as she came past the 1.25 miles, I was standing there, and she held up both hands. "Which way do I go?" "That way," and that way led to the finish line, and she won. Well, she was a 4-time NAI All-American when you had to finish in the top 25 at Nationals with over 300 runners. Her front running helped the women's cross-country team finish in the top 4 teams at Nationals twice. They were 4th and then 3rd. And she was a 6-time indoor and outdoor NAI track and field All-American, including a school record in the distance medley. And that school record came about because at indoors there at Nebraska back then, we had time. The last event of the whole meet was a distance medley relay against time, 2 heats against time, and only the top 3 teams made All-American. Westmont's in the 2nd heat. Azusa has run the 3rd fastest time, and Miriam gets the baton. As she takes off, at about 50 meters in, I holler at Miriam, "You've got to run under 5:05 for the team to get to All-American." And her thought was, "Oh, okay." Well, what you have to realize is she just finished 7th in the mile early in the day running 5:07, missing an All-American spot by 1 place. So she ran 5:01. The girl set a school record, finished 3rd at Nationals, and made All-American. It was one of the great moments to watch as a competitor, as a coach of a great competitor. She scored in the mile. She scored in the 3,000 meters to make All-American. She earned academic All-American honors for both her junior and senior years. She was 2-time Golden State Athletic Conference and District 3 champion, and would have been 3 times except her teammate beat her. Very talented young lady who Miriam's senior year kept gaining on her every step, and at the national championship, Julie was right there and Miriam was right here, and they were 18th and 19th or 17th and 18th at Nationals. Miriam was an unassuming athlete who gave her all for the team on race day. She did not enjoy the drudgery of daily practice. One of her teammates back then, Todd Farrington, said, "If she just trained, she could be really good." I said, "Todd, she's got 8 All-American certificates. What do you want?" Training was hard for her because it wasn't what she was interested in, but she got it done. She was strong-willed, but apologized when she felt she spoke too strongly. And we had many good talks during that time. And one of those talks was when she sat in my office, and all American certificates don't make you feel good about yourself. God grants that in different ways. And she sat there and says, I'm not pretty enough. No guy's ever really going to date me or be interested in me. And I said, well, Miriam, you're a lovely lady. She says, my dad says that all the time, and I don't believe you either. I said, Miriam, you've got to wait. One day, some guy's going to court you, and he's going to see the deep down beauty that you are. And when I meet that man, I'm going to shake his hand and say, you're the smartest man in the world. And when I met Joe, I shook his hand and said, you're the smartest man in the world. And I believe it to this day. So I've been able to shake his hand and hold their children. It's been an extreme privilege. So with all those talks and all that running, I regard the time that Miriam was on the teams at Westmont to be some of the most enjoyable of my 32 years coaching and teaching here. There's no better person to lead a team, and the fact that she made 10 times All-American is just icing on the cake. Miriam, congratulations.
Thank you, Russell. You said that just the way I wrote it, and I appreciate that. And also I want to say a special thanks to Russell. As you know, coaches make a huge difference in the life of a student, an athlete. And Russell was a great encourager and friend to Miriam. And as a dad, I'm so appreciative of that. So, also, I just thought I'd take a minute tonight to share with you where Miriam got her true prowess for running. And it definitely came from the men in her family, starting with her father and her two brothers. She learned early on she could smoke us running. That means she blew us off the track. We couldn't keep up with her. And then Joe actually kept the family tradition going. I think Joe is the slowest of all of us. However, he was fast enough to catch her, and they're now married, and also he's the dad of two of the world's smartest and the cutest grandkids. So we're grateful. And Miriam, I just say, too, on behalf of all the family, obviously, we are so proud of you. Miriam's siblings are here, brother Michael, sister Miriam, and sister-in-law, Melissa, Nicole, my wife Patricia, and then also friends from Westmont are here with them, as two, Taylor, Rebecca, and Brittany. And it's good to have all of you here tonight. But, as a family, I would just say as great and as fun as it was to watch Miriam run, I would say she's not only a great runner, but an even better person. And as a dad, one of the things that just thrills your heart is to watch your kids grow up and watch their faith grow. Miriam has a strong love for Christ. As Russell pointed out well, she has a great love for her friends, her family. That's been contagious over the years. She is very humble. She did not get that from her father. But it's been fun as well to watch her. She right now is the head of a department of ministry in Atlanta, Georgia at Peachtree Presbyterian, along with her husband Joe is on staff there. And she's working on her doctorate. She wouldn't tell you about that either, but she continues to grow and develop as a person. And as a dad, I couldn't be prouder. I'm proud of all my kids. And by the way, in the family, the girls were definitely faster. Miriam's sister, had she gone here too, I think would have been an All-American as well. Melissa was quite a runner. But I want to tell you the story of my favorite race of Miriam's was of all time. Was the very first race she ever ran in cross country as a sophomore in high school. And her older brother had told her, Miriam, go out for cross country because they don't cut anybody. And so our very first race was in Northern California, Monte Vista High School, and they had this large hill, not quite as big as Mount Sac, but a large one. And I remember it was 95 degrees that day, and as fathers do, I was looking for a tree to hide under. And there were about 50 girls in this sophomore race. And they took off, and I asked Mary, what was your goal for the day? She says, well, I know one thing, Dad, I'm not going to be last. I said, that's great, honey, you go for it. And so they started running this race, and they run about a mile, then they go behind this hill. And the way the shadows were, you could not see. When the girls came around, all you could see was like silhouettes. You couldn't tell who was who. And so I looked, and I started watching these girls come down one by one. There was no Miriam. And I thought, oh, no, it's so hot. She's on the backside of the hill. I bet she sat down to take a rest. And so I'm standing down. There's a little pond right here. I'm standing under a tree. And as I look up, lo and behold, here's the first 4 runners, and Miriam's in the top 4. And so she's running along, and now Dad gets real excited. So I said, Mary, you got to go, run hard. And she's looking at me like, I'm about to die, Dad, and you're telling me to run harder. And she came around the corner. The girl who was in the first place just kicked in and won. And Miriam was running right next to another girl. And I said, Miriam, you got to kick, you got to kick. And her face just looked like, I've got to get over this thing. And she kicked, and she came in second. When she crossed the finish line, they had these little popsicle sticks with numbers on them. They handed her one with 2. And she was huffing and puffing, and she said, Dad, what's this? And I said, well, honey, I said, you finished second. And she looked at me like I was crazy. Somehow she kind of lost where she was. She thought she was running second to last. And she thought the girl running next to her, if she beat her, was going to make her dead last in the race. So she did kick, and she finished second, not second to last. That's absolutely one of my favorite races. I also remember Russell mentioned she was not a widely known high school runner, although she did pretty well. And she had a couple of good races in high school. And I said, Mary, you know, in college, you've gotten so much better. What do you attribute it to? And she says, well, Dad, in high school, and in college, you've gotten so much better. She said, I ran hard about 2 or 3 times. She says, but I realized when I got to college, if I was going to do well, I'd have to run till it hurt every race. And that's also been a little bit of a reflection of Mary that, you know, we enjoy people who do well at their professions or in sports, but someone pays a price to run well, and Mary did and ran. Russell used to say she has a strong will, which she did, to run through pain when life was a challenge. And as I think about it, too, isn't that not true? Isn't that a lot like life? Life is a cross-country race with hurdles. It's more like a steeplechase, I think, and it's uphill. Have you noticed that? I was told life gets more challenging as you get older. And as I think of Mary, I think of the fact that she has walked with Christ. We're proud of you, Mary. And when I think of you and I think of your future, I think of a young woman with wisdom who has love for people, her family, her God. She's a woman of faith and a woman who brings great cheer to all of us. So, honey, I love you.
Thank you, Russell. Thanks, Dad. Well, I think they told most of my good stories I had prepared, so we'll have to come up with some new ones. But no one is more surprised than I am to be standing up here. What my dad may not have told you is that I was the type of kid that played lots of sports and sat on the bench most of the season when I was growing up. And I usually won awards like the kid who smiled the most while sitting on the bench. But was not very successful at any endeavors I had. So when I reached high school, I tried out for the soccer team and got cut, to which my older brother sarcastically said, you should go out for track. No one gets cut from the track team. So I went out for track, and at the end of that season, a friend of mine said, well, if you do cross country, then you don't have to do PE. So I went out for cross country the next season where my dad told our stories. But it's really a special moment for me, first and foremost, just to be back here at Westmont. I have so many memories of just times here, and to see so many good friends and have everyone gather here. This just means so much to me today. And all the attention is a little bit overwhelming and a little bit humbling, but it's an incredible honor. And it's always kind of been my nature to want to diminish or deflect the attention, but actually a fellow teammate of mine who's here tonight, Matt Thompson, said something to me when I was an athlete here. And, you know, I think he gave me a compliment after a race, and my usual, you know, fashion said, oh, it wasn't that great or whatever. And he just said to me, he said, would you just learn to accept a compliment? He said, first of all, it's annoying. And secondly, how do you think everyone else feels who finished after you? And he said, it's much more humble to say thank you and then give credit where credit is due. And Matt, I have always remembered that. And I'm still learning how to say thank you. But I think tonight is about learning to give credit where credit is due. There's a lot of people here. I wouldn't be standing here without some special people who have believed in me. I'll start with my dad. My poor dad always wanted to have a kid who was a ball player. He wouldn't tell you, but he was a quarterback at Florida State, and Unfortunately, 4 kids in the family, 3 of the 4 of us inherited our mother's lack of eye-hand coordination, and the one who had any potential became a surfer instead. And so he ended up with 2 runners, but he made the best of it, and he got into running, and he's learned about track and cross country, and read things about the kids in the leagues across town, and he was at every meet I ever ran. He became like the team dad here at Westmont. Every race I had, he went. So he was a pastor and would have to preach Saturday night. We had a meet in Fresno. He would drive to Fresno in the morning, be there for the meet, take off the second it was over, drive back in time to preach that evening. He was always there and always my #1 fan. In fact, a couple years ago when John called to see if I could be inducted in the last round of this, my dad was going to be out of the country, and I said, I can't do it. This means more to him, I think, than it even does to me. I can't do it without him. So anyway, Dad, I'm blessed to have a dad who's always believed in me and always been proud of me. And as a pastor's kid, I think he said from the pulpit every accolade I ever had, which I always wanted to hide in the back. But I've always known that my dad believes in me and is proud of me. And it's actually never been hard for me to believe that God loves me that same way, because I've had a dad who's always modeled that to me, and I feel very blessed that way. Russell, along with my dad, there's perhaps not been a greater male role model or mentor in my life. He was the type of coach. He made a personal investment in each one of us. Clearly, as we're pouring out our hearts about boy trouble, poor Russell has had to be a counselor, a pastor, a teacher, a coach. He knew us. He knew our families. He knew our struggles. He cared about us more than just as athletes. He also was a great storyteller, loved to tell us stories about the Civil War history and how somehow a Southern general, won this battle because of this, and that somehow it applied to cross country. I'm not quite sure how. But we learned all kinds of things on and off the field, and I now live in Atlanta, Georgia in the South, so you had a great impact on me as I'm now a Southerner. But I can still quote things he said, like, your mind will follow the direction of its first, most dominant thought. I remember that one. And he taught us the value of setting goals, of working hard to achieve them, of writing little, post-it notes in your dorm room and hanging them all over the walls about that time you wanted to achieve or what it wanted to be. But most of all, he taught us that our character was more important than our performance. And he believed that. And he cared about how we conducted ourselves on and off the field. And he cared about how our faith was lived out in our lives and the people we were becoming. But one of the greatest gifts Russell gave me was that he believed in me as well. And he already told the story, but when he told me, you can win that race. I'd never won a race in my life. And I don't know if it really sunk in, because I still never paid attention to the courses, because I just figured I'll follow whoever's in front of me. And so no one was more surprised than me than when the first time it happened and I found myself in first place. But he was there to point the way and show me to the end of the race. But I have to say, even more than just his influence while I was a part of this team has been the continuing person that you've modeled to all of us through the various challenges you've faced over these past several years. And to watch your faith and your steadfast spirit, your honest expression of pain of the losses you've experienced, your trust in God in spite of it all, it continues to amaze me and inspire all of us who have watched you. And I think that some of the most important life lessons that I've learned have come from running. The value of persisting through the pain, of keeping your eyes on the goal, of practicing hard, of refusing to give up even when everything inside you wants to quit. And Russell, you've not only taught us those things as a coach, but you've modeled them in how you've lived your life as well. And so I just want to say thank you. I would not be standing here without your leadership in my life. And I also want to thank my 3 best friends from college who are here this evening. They've become like sisters to me. We have shared moments of laughter and cried together, and it's rare that you find friends that will last a lifetime. And you all 3 have been there for me and will continue to be. Former teammates, Matt and Amy here, as Russell mentioned, I didn't really like to try very hard in practice, but Amy, I've never met anyone that ran harder in practice in my life, and she she kept me going. And, you know, there are people, this team, those years that we spent together. Matt was the one other teammate from the class of 97 that we ran all 4 years together. And you just have these memories of trips, of the time spent together in practice, where you really become like a little family. And don't believe all the stories about the pranks. I may have instigated them, but I certainly had a few accomplices as well who helped me out. But finally, I just want to say I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity to attend a school like Westmont. I've been blessed to be a part of an institution where an integration of faith and learning is a given, that it spills out into everything, into athletics, into the friendships that I made. My 4 years here have been some of the greatest of my life, and Westmont provided me with incredible foundation, with opportunities to participate in athletics, to take courses in religious studies, to build an incredible sense of community with fellow students and faculty, and I'm so grateful for my years here. And I just wanted to close with one of my favorite scriptures from the book of Hebrews, which says, "And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith." And all of my experiences at Westmont in athletics, in the classroom, in my times with friends, I've been reminded that the key to running the race of life is to fix our eyes on Jesus. And so I'm grateful for a school that has left me with that lesson. Thank you so much.